From here on out, a number of the videos get considerably easier. So, you've made it through the hard part. This video will focus on a text titled The Apology. Specifically, the Apology of Socrates. And it's written by Plato. This text and its title doesn't mean to apologize. Socrates certainly does not apologize. Instead, the original meaning of the word apology refers to a defense. In this text, Socrates attempts to defend himself against two charges. One, that he is an atheist, and two, that he's been corrupting the youth. I would suggest at least one important piece of advice to you, which is, if you ever find yourself in a position in which you need to apologize, don't try and defend yourself. Just say you're sorry. I provide that to you, speaking from experience. This is also the usage of the term that corresponds with the word apologetics. Apologetics usually applies to a particular religion, such as Christianity, Islam, Judaism, or Buddhism. And it's an attempt to defend that religion against criticism or counter-arguments that the religion is not true, not good, not accurate. So Christian apologetics are the attempts to defend Christianity. Islamic apologetics are the same for Islam. Jewish or Buddhist apologetics are defenses of those religions. For our purposes here, though, we should focus on whether or not these crimes that Socrates have been charged with add up. It's worth asking how Socrates could be an atheist if he's constantly speaking about the gods and the voice of God within him, his inner voice or conscience. Notice that for Socrates' ancient Greek society, the gods don't speak through normal people. Instead, the powerful, or the illustrious heroes of old, or prophets, hear the voices of gods. But for a common homeless man like Socrates to claim that God speaks through him is uncouth, perhaps blasphemous, or heretical. Furthermore, we had seen the criticisms Socrates was offering of polytheistic Greek religion in the Republic, that the gods were petty, vengeful, jealous, and that they should be done away with. Likely this also did not endear Socrates to the populace. Perhaps Socrates is not an atheist, but that he defines God in his own way, and not in the way in which everyone else around him in his society defines God. This then becomes a very relevant question for us. Should you, or do you, have the right to define God as you see fit? Or do you merely have to believe in the same way that everyone else around you believes? Secondly, Socrates is charged with corrupting the youth. But we could ask, how can someone so interested in morality, ethics, justice, and virtue really be so bad for the youth? But remember also, in the Republic, Socrates is encouraging those who listen to him teach to question everything, as he has questioned everything. To question the religious authorities, the political authorities. And questioning authority, perhaps that is somewhat akin to corrupting the youth. Ask yourself of this class so far, and by its end, after we will have discussed Friedrich Nietzsche and his powerful counter-arguments against the existence of a God, whether philosophy for you has served some corrupting influence. We see in the Apology what is called Socrates' motto, that one should know thyself, and that the unexamined life is not worth living. We also see Socrates expressing what appears to be considerable humility. He claims he has no wisdom, small or great. Some translators render this phrase into English as, "I only know that I do not know," which presents us with another paradox. How can we know ourselves if we only know that we cannot know? The backstory to this trial and to Socrates' life involves a priestess called the Oracle at Delphi. She is a prophet who speaks on behalf of the gods. Specifically, she sits in a temple over a volcanic vent and cleft in the rock, out of which a small amount of nitrous oxide seeps. You might know nitrous oxide as laughing gas. And so, this woman, inhaling trace amounts of laughing gas, sits and, according to the Greek religion, speaks true prophecies on the behalf of the gods. the story goes that someone travels to this oracle and asks her, "Who is the wisest of men?" And she responds, "Socrates is the wisest of men." This news makes its way through the grapevine back to Socrates' ears. And Socrates' first response is disbelief. And that's very relevant. He can't believe it. And in fact, distrusts this prophecy, which is supposedly true, so much that he takes it to be his life's mission to prove the prophet of his society's religion wrong, to prove her to be a false prophet. In this way, Socrates sets an example, which most, if not all, philosophy will follow since then. Disbelief to the point of endeavoring to disprove the prophets of a society's religion. Perhaps it's not surprising that Socrates ends up executed by his state. That's not an especially good way to win friends. It's also incredibly proud, arrogant, conceited to think that one could take the prophet of his own society's religion and prove it false. It's no small matter. If Socrates can find one person wiser than he is, the prophet will be disproven. And so he sets out searching for someone wiser than him. He goes first to the religious teachers. Surely they would have some wisdom about religious matters, and discovers they're foolish. They are pretenders to wisdom. They think they know more than most. They act like they're better than most. But Socrates exposes them for the fools that they are, which, again, does not win him any friends. If the religious elite don't even have significant wisdom regarding religion, who could? Or what hope do the rest of us have? It's disturbing. Next, Socrates goes to the political elite. Surely they would have some wisdom about politics, laws, justice, and statecraft. But there again he discovers wisdom in short supply. That the political rulership doesn't appear to know what it's talking about. And so he winds up publicly humiliating the political elite, exposing them as pretenders to wisdom and as the fools that they are. Now Socrates has ruffled the feathers of the rich and powerful, and likely the schemes are working behind the scenes to bring these charges against him. On the part of the powerful, to silence them, to silence Socrates, before he does any more damage to the elite's reputation. Socrates goes to the military high command, thinking certainly they would have some significant wisdom about war there, with the same results. Which leads Socrates to reevaluate the oracle's prophecy. Perhaps what she meant, Socrates thinks, is that Socrates is wisest because he knows that his wisdom, in truth, is worth nothing. Socrates doesn't pretend to know more than he knows, unlike the religious, political, and military elite. But the damage has been done now. And so Socrates is hauled before a jury of his peers. And there he describes himself as a sort of gadfly. A gadfly is a biting horsefly. And he says that he has been given to the state by God. Remember, he's been accused of being an atheist. Does that sound like something an atheist would say? But we also said that Socrates was expressing humility just a moment ago. Now Socrates is claiming to be God's gift to Athens. Humble? I think not. Socrates is a sort of biting horsefly, and the state is like a great and noble steed who is tardy or slow in his motions, owing to his very size, and requires to be stirred into life. I am that gadfly which God has given the state, and all day long and in all places am always fastening upon you and arousing and persuading and reproaching you. You can imagine Socrates waving his finger, tisk, 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 at what doesn't live up to his standards and expectations in terms of morality, virtue, justice, and ethics. In this way, Socrates provides an example that the point or purpose of the philosopher is to prick the conscience of the society, exposing its flaws and nipping at its heels, so that way it can make moral progress. It can move forward. It can advance. It can get better, do better, be better. But in order to do so, he has to hurt the pride, the intellect, the ego, the image of oneself. We like to carry around polished and pretend we've got it all figured out. When Socrates lands on the backside of this horse and bites it, the horse jumps. And that's the philosopher's job. To prick, to poke, to prod, to interrogate, and critique, in order to make the world better. Socrates says that the sun is stone and the moon is earth, which is true. our current understanding of the sun and its processes, which Socrates could not have known anything about, is that as the sun expends its fuel, it leaves behind a core of ash, of iron. If you saw a lump of iron on the side of the road, you might reasonably mistake it for a stone yourself. When astronauts reached the moon in 1969 and did geological survey, what they discovered is that the age of the moon rocks and the age of the earth rocks perfectly correspond. Our theory for the formation of the moon is that the moon is made from the exact same stuff the earth is. But for Socrates' society, the sun and the moon are gods. And Socrates is saying, nope, just stuff. Is he an atheist? No. But he doesn't believe in the gods that everyone around him believes in. Ultimately, the Greek Senate takes a vote and convicts Socrates of the crimes of being an atheist and corrupting the youth. Whether he did or not. And the Greeks have a tradition in which the guilty party can suggest what sort of punishment they deserve. When given this opportunity, Socrates responds that what he deserves is not punishment, but payment for doing a service. That he has been living the life of a homeless beggar, going around and exposing all the fools for the fools that they are, for free, doing God's work in Athens on all of their behalf. And it might be nice to show some appreciation. Specifically, he wants to be treated like a Super Bowl MVP, given a prime suite in the nicest penthouse. The life of luxury suited for the Olympic heroes. And what the jury and Senate respond with is a cup of poison for Socrates to drink. Hemlock, specifically. As if to say, we have your reward right here, oh dear Socrates. So, the trial and subsequent execution of Socrates, to the extent that it's written about in the text called the Apology, ends with this phrase: "The hour of departure has arrived, and we go our separate ways, I to die and you to live. Which is the better, God only knows." Says the man just sentenced to death for being an atheist. Our next video will deal with our final Platonic dialogue to discuss, called the Symposium, a discussion of the nature of love. And from there, we'll deal with Aristotle, one last ancient Greek, Epicurus, And then the fall of the Roman Empire and the rise of Christianity and Islam, and their influence on the philosophy of the Western world.